Welcome, everyone, to the Leadership in Quarters podcast, the interview series, where leaders come to share their perspectives on different leadership topics. I'm Josh Selden, and today's guest is David Price. David Price is the CEO and founder of the Price Group, a leading insurance agency specializing in final expense life insurance. Since entering the industry in 2018, David became one of the fastest to reach millionaire status, achieving it within just 36 months by building a simple, scalable system that empowers everyday people to succeed. To date, David has driven over $50 million in sales, helping more than 50,000 families secure financial peace of mind. In 2024, he launched the Price Group IMO, expanding partnerships with top-rated carriers to give agents access to better products, higher commission, and a proven path to multi-six-figure incomes. As a member of the Forbes Business Council, David shares his insights with a national audience and uses social media to mentor and inspire agents around the world. His commitment to transparency, integrity, and growth continues to shape his leadership and elevate the industry. So welcome, David.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Sorry, I feel like the intro was a little long, man. I might have to shorten that up. I hope you are still on.
It's definitely an impressive background that you have. Super excited to have you on the show.
I appreciate it. Thanks, man. I'm excited to be here, and thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, of course. So I'm excited to get into this. I love the idea of resilient teams and organizations and how important that is. I know, as we just heard, you've had a journey of growing empires and organizations throughout your career. How do you create resilient teams to enable that growth?
It's funny because there's different levels of resilience. So it sounds real nice. Like, how do you create resilient teams? But
Right.
just understand that even resilient teams, they go through issues. I don't think there's anyone that doesn't. And I think the difference is when you have those issues, focus on the activity that you need to get. I was just having a talk with one of my managers actually this morning because they weren't happy with the results they had. And they're looking at today as like a singular day and they're second guessing their lives. And are they growing? Are they shrinking? And all that stuff that I feel like entrepreneurs just go through on a regular basis. And I was like, all right, cool. Let's go over this. Let's break this down. And I opened up Apple. I used Apple. It's the stock charts on Apple. And you show Apple, one of the most successful companies in history. But if you look at their stock chart, like ups and downs. And I'm like, right now, they're not at an all-time high. They're higher than they were, but they're in a down. So I'm like, so who do you think you are that you should outperform Apple? There's not one company in history that just always has the up. So back to the question, how do you build resilient teams? Is just teaching them like it's okay to fail. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to have downtimes. It's okay. Just understand that if you just keep focusing on the activity, those ups and downs are going to be, that's it. They're going to be ups and downs, as opposed to what most people do is once that stuff happens, they quit. And
Right.
and that's it. That's where you get the flat line. When you're in the hospital, you get the flat line, the thing
Yeah,
you don't want. That's the quit. And the only way, you get the ups and downs is that's it. That's life.
that makes a lot of sense. And not to boil it down to something simple, but as somebody who just went through a personal weight loss, it'd be the same as they say your weight fluctuates. You're going to go on a diet, but it doesn't mean you're going to lose weight every single day. And if I quit my diet the first time I gained half a pound, then it wastes all the effort and the time and everything.
Yeah, and just imagine if we quit walking every time because we fell. We quit trying to walk when we were kids because we fell. And the kids, they're the most resilient. It's like, how do we keep that mindset as we grow older? People would be way more successful because the kid doesn't care that they're falling all over the place. They're like, oh, people are going to judge me. I shouldn't do this. What if I scrape my knees? Like, if I knock out my teeth? The kid's just trying to walk. They're just doing whatever they can to do it. Be more like the baby.
Yeah, channel our inner children. And I think that's so important, normalizing that up and down, just accepting that it's going to happen and just making sure we learn from the downtimes and how do we recover. With that, though, I know you mentioned teaching. So, one thing I've always wondered is, are there qualities of a resilient team or resilient people that you've seen? Or does everybody start at square one and resiliency is more taught than it is a natural mindset?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've hired over 5,000 insurance agents. So I have a huge model of people, and you see the ones that don't make it. And the majority of entrepreneurs, they don't make it because they're not resilient. And when I first started my entrepreneurial journey, teaching insurance agents how to sell insurance, you're judging the person. You're like, oh, this person's a really good talker, and this person could talk to anyone, or they can talk to a tree. And you're like, they have the tongue. And you look for that. And then throughout the process, you realize like the people that you thought were going to do really well actually don't do that. And then you hire the people that you think won't be successful, that they don't have what it takes. They're just maybe socially awkward a little bit. Heck, I think I'm socially awkward, to be honest with you. But those people that you see them make it, and like, all right, cool. So hold on a second. This person's skill level was like up here and they quit. They said they couldn't do it. And this person's skill level was down here but now they're making like multi six figures when they're used to making 15 bucks an hour. And then you're like, all right, so what's the difference? And what I came to is that it's the heart. Like it is, it's that resilience that I don't know if they're born with it or if, like, for me, I grew up with broken family. My mom was addicted to drugs. My father was addicted to drugs. They got divorced. I lived in homeless shelters. So I dealt with a ton of resilience as a kid. So for me, stress and all that stuff, that was just normal. No matter what, we just had to go through it. And when there wasn't food, it's like, all right, cool. I got a peanut butter jar. I'm going to eat peanut butter for dinner.
Right.
Fine. And you just did what you had to do. So as an entrepreneur, it's, oh, okay, this isn't that bad. I could eat at least. I have a place to sleep. I don't have to worry about it. So I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if they're born with it or they just get that early on. It's definitely challenging to take somebody who's not resilient, who always wants to quit, who folds under pressure, and like showing them how to have resilience. That's definitely been challenging. And as I say this, I think about one of my managers who thought they were hustling all the time. Like, yeah, we're hustle mode, but then they got to spend a lot of time with me and they understood, oh, wow, I thought I was hustle mode, but I realized I wasn't even close to hustle mode. You could be a good example to the person and let them know what really entrepreneurship looks and what that day looks like, and how long that day is, and when that day starts, and when that day ends, and why you're too busy to play around in that day. But ultimately, just really that person's heart, man. If they're willing to do whatever it takes to succeed, I feel like that they'll succeed. From my experience, it's just most people will make an excuse or they'll look for that next thing as soon as they hit that wall instead of trying to figure out how to get through that wall.
It's so interesting to think about because I feel like there are people that have natural talent. And like you said, you have the people that come in that you're like, oh my gosh, this person already can do everything we're going to ask them to do. And they haven't lived through it like you have. And like you say, other people have. So the first time they hit a speed bump, it throws them off their game. Where, like you said, the people who have to overcome challenges and overcome barriers in their life and their career, they just build up that thick skin, that resiliency, whatever you want to call it. And I think it makes them so much of a stronger leader or entrepreneur. I read an article once about a company that said in their interview process, tell me about the most difficult time that you've had in your profession. And they said, if anybody came back and said, I've been very lucky, I haven't had any, they don't hire them because they don't have that resiliency. Those are the people who are going to crack the first time they hit that speed bump.
Yeah, no, I love that interview question. And I may actually add that. And I've heard that before. It's great. I feel like everyone does deal with some kind of resilience, but like me, I like triumph. So I like when the cards are stacked against me, I'm the underdog. There's no way I'm going to get my way out of this. There's no way. And then I triumph. So I remember that because for me, like half the time, I'm just doing it for the story because I like a great movie, just like someone else when Tom Cruise somehow makes it and you're like, man, how did this guy make it? But the person that is, oh, I didn't really never had a hard time. To me, they don't even care about the story. So they probably had some stuff they had to go through in life, but they didn't even acknowledge it because to them, like triumphant, it didn't matter. So yeah, I want the person that wants to build that story for sure.
So with that, if you have people that then are going through those tough times, whether they're used to it or not, and you gave the example of the person who's freaking out a little bit that they hit a valley instead of their peak. If they're in more of a prolonged valley than maybe they're used to, what kind of systems do you use to help get them out of that funk? Is there any kind of reward and recognition system or some kind of system that you use to help pick them up and get them back on their feet that really helps energize them and recover from those situations?
I wish I could say I had some magic 3-letter word hack or something like that to help them go through it. But ultimately, you have to look at, I feel like if you're an entrepreneur, business owner, or whatever it is, I don't care, sports, I don't care what it is. You're trying to accomplish something that you haven't been able to accomplish, or maybe you're just not performing at the level you want to perform. And for me, I like to break things down just as simple as possible. For example, I have insurance agents, they sell insurance virtually from home. Real simple, right? You talk to the client, you go over the application with them, you present them with some plans, and that's it. So typically what happens is there's two things that will happen. There's one, you do talk to a good amount of people and you just don't make the sales, which will happen. And then that's a skill thing. But usually the problem is they didn't actually try to talk to enough people. And if you consistently don't try to talk to enough people, guess the sales aren't there. And then there's the people that fluctuate. They have a good day. Maybe they didn't get the results they wanted to. So the next day don't do as much. And then maybe they got paid from the results the other day that they didn't realize they're getting. So now they're excited and they work again. And then they didn't get the results. So then they don't do as much. And it's like this flow of like the results are up and down. But the problem is their activity and what they're doing isn't equal. That's also up and down, which is making things not work ideally. So when somebody is not having that success, it's okay, cool. So why aren't you having success? And like, what did you do yesterday? So that's the first thing is like, cool. Tell me about yesterday. Tell me what happened yesterday in your world. But a lot of time, that's when you can find out the problem. Oh, I dialed the phone 30 times yesterday. I'm like, okay. So you dialed the phone 30 times yesterday. You talked to anyone? No, no one answered the phone. I couldn't get anyone on the phone. Okay. How long did it take you to dial the phone 30 times? 30 minutes? Is that fair? A minute a dial sound about right? Okay. So you worked a whole 30 minutes yesterday and you didn't get any results. And this is the conversation we're having now about that. And you just break it down so simple for them. And then
Mhm.
obviously through that, they're just like, okay, I guess I didn't get the results because I worked 30 minutes yesterday. What did you expect? I could pay you $200 an hour. You work 30 minutes, you're getting $100.
Right.
That's it's still not really a great day for you. So for me, it's like always getting down to the activities that need to be done to get the desired result that you want. And typically, when people aren't getting the desired result, they're just not doing the activity that's required to get that, or they're not doing it long enough or consistently enough over a long enough time to do it. So for me, it's just breaking things down as simple as possible. And I think we could do that with anything. If you're playing basketball, it's like my free throw sucks. It's like, all right, cool. Have you been practicing it? No, not really. Okay. Why should it be great then? So whatever it is just breaking that down to the simple things. So people are so focused on the results, but they don't want to focus on what needs to be done to accomplish it.
Right. I feel like you're exactly right. So many people focus on the negative output and don't focus on the building blocks to get there. And so it seems like it's so important to put everything in perspective for them and bring them back to that holistic view of those building blocks. And then I think the story that you obviously have is that you've done it. And so you see so many other leaders and owners or managers of these big organizations that either luck themselves into it or join this but never actually got their hands dirty. And it's so tough for them to then build up their people, their managers, their team because they can't tell those stories that you talked about. They can't help put in perspective because you've done the same thing and you've run into the same issues. And I just don't think it gets that same reaction as what you described.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I have a full management team, and I think about, as you said, my top manager right now, and she sucked. She sucked for 2 years. I love her. She knows she sucked. That's how I say the same stuff public in front of her. But she sucked for 2 years. But she did something that no one else has done. Is she just was okay with sucking for 2 years, and she just kept working for 2 years. Her parents had interventions like, "This isn't for you. You need to go get a job. This isn't working."
Wow.
She called me up. I got to quit, like crying, all the thing. And I just try to figure out like, what can I do to get her to work one more day? What I could do to get her to work one more day. And there's so many people that just came and just were naturally super successful. And she hated it. She loved them. She could tell. I was like, dude, what the hell? Like really second guessing her life. But because she went through so much hardship, because she knows what it's like to suck, she's able to help people at the highest level now because
Right.
she went through it. Like my best successor, the person that just came out of the gate killing it, then she's trying to manage people. I don't understand why you're having problems. It's simple. Like, why are you, what's wrong with you? You just take leads and sell to insurance. I don't know
Right.
why you're losing it because she never went through it herself. And I look at that too. When I'm going through resilience, I'm like, what the heck is going on? Maybe I need to put myself in a rubber room. And it's given me all this experience so I can help the next person get to the same level I am because I've went through everything I had to go through to get there. So I think when you really start switching your mind where you accept the challenge, I'm like, oh man, okay, this is how we're doing it now. All right, let me get my gloves on and let's rock.
It reminds me of an interview I had with somebody early on in my podcasting where she actually wrote a book about this, but it was about how your top sales leader, your top executor doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be your top manager. And how we so often take our top executor and make them, they're the next person we promote, they're the next person we put in to a leadership position. And a lot of times, like you said, they may be the natural talent that, yeah, they can sell a piece of wood to the forest or something like that, but they haven't built that resiliency over time, like your manager who sucked for 2 years. And so they may not be able to manage people and rally the group around them during those tough times because they haven't lived it and they don't fully understand it.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely, without a doubt. It makes me think about like college. People go to college to get this degree, and a lot of times they're like chasing the degree. But for me, it's that experience. So for me, it's just these experiences, that's the real value that you have because of this experience. I'm able to create this much income because all the stuff that I've learned through the way.
So through the way, through your journey, there are obviously ups and downs that we've talked about. When that happens and when there are changes throughout that journey, how do you utilize like clear communication with the team to make sure that they're all on board, they all know the new direction or the pivot that the business has to make to keep moving forward?
I think the one thing that's really helped me lead people, because I'm leading a virtual sales team. So it's a different world. I feel like you're like the Wizard of Oz. You're the man behind that people don't actually interface, talk to that much in person, or we see each other. There's a lot of people I've never actually met in person ever. But the one thing I think that always works for me, that I get a lot of feedback, is just brutal honesty.
Hmm.
And people have said that through the years. It doesn't even mean they even have to like what I say all the time, but they always know what to expect with me. So I'm never going to just tell someone what they want to hear and then change my mind later just because I didn't want to be in that conversation. So same thing when stuff happens, it's like, hey, listen, this is where we're at. This is what happens. This is our new direction, and this is why. I've learned like doing that, you really get a strong following, because at the end of the day, when you're leading people, there's a couple of ways to lead people. Obviously, there's like that dictatorship way, which I don't think is the greatest way to lead people, but
Right.
people do lead with fear. But for me, I want to lead with empowering people and teaching people and making them better people. So ultimately, I have to build trust, because the more I could get someone to trust me, the better they're going to follow me. Like, if you don't trust me, if you don't believe anything I say, like, why are you going to listen to me? Being vulnerable. So people are so scared about being vulnerable. Just because I'm a leader doesn't mean I can't have a bad day, or I can't fail, or I can't be wrong. I'll be the first person to, like, hey, you know what? This was our direction last week, and I realized I was dead wrong. So and so actually called me up and told me I was dead wrong, and they were right. And this is our change because of it. So for me, it's just being transparent, just being honest, putting people first. Another thing I see is people are just so worried about themselves. And I'm a recovering drug addict. And with that, you have a lot of selfish behaviors and you're worried about yourself all the time. So now I'm like the opposite, where I'm putting other people first. I'm worried about other people. And because of that, it actually helps me more than when I was worried about myself.
You said a lot of things that really resonate with me, and I think the people that'll be watching this episode. So, the first one is trust. So, trust in my mind, just like you said, is a foundation. And if you don't have it, just like the foundation of your house, if it's broken, the house is going to fall apart. And same thing with trust. Is there anything other than the vulnerability, which I think can be a huge conversation just in itself, how no leaders are vulnerable these days because they think it's a sign of weakness? How else have you built trust with your organization with how important that is?
Yeah, so it's one of my actions. What I do see in leadership is a lot of times, well, people just lie. They'll
Mm.
lie, and they're lying to get through that moment or conversation, but they don't realize, or maybe they don't care, or maybe they just think they're just that much smarter than everyone else. Probably, maybe that's more of it. But just because you got past that conversation doesn't mean that person's not going to think about that later on, or maybe get some new information later on. But like, that person just was lying to me. And I have people that were supposed to be leaders for me that I would just catch them in lies all the time. And it got to the point where, like, I'm not even going to call this person anymore. The only reason I'm going to talk to this person is if I have to, if we're in like an in-person setting, because I don't want to be lied to. Now anything he says to me means nothing, because I know they lies. So one, doing the right thing yourself, but then teaching that, because when you're having these conversations with people, if you're telling them, oh yeah, screw them, or do this or do that, or don't worry about them, then that's you, that's your character. So for me, it's always not just doing things the right way for me, but like teaching that and showing other people that, and be like, listen, no, because I do manage a lot of managers that have to manage people. So it's
Right.
me helping them make decisions that help their people, as opposed to them being selfish for themselves. And the more you do that, you build a culture where that just duplicates. And when you have a culture of people that put people first, then you have a really powerful thing.
Definitely. And as you build that culture, how have you, right, been able to build in the ability for your managers to be vulnerable? Because I do think I love that you say that, because I feel like, again, leaders think vulnerability is a sign of weakness. And so when you have a lead team, nobody wants to be that one person who's vulnerable because everybody else has their walls up and they're going to be like, I can't believe that person shared this or feels that way. I'll never feel that way, knowing deep down they do as well. Once you've accepted the fact that you can be vulnerable, how have you taught other people on your teams to do the same and humanize themselves with their groups?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just teaching people it's okay to communicate. So when I said open communication, for instance, people are able to speak freely with me. I don't want people to be in fear. Also, I have a good amount of staff as well, and staff make mistakes. And typically, I want to go out of my way when a staff makes a mistake. If somebody tries to do something to better us, or they assist them a process or something, and but they're wrong, and it happened recently, I don't want to scold them. I want to empower them to make decisions on their own, to have free thinking. So it's the same thing, whether they're one of my insurance agents or whether they're a staff. Just have this open communication policy where if you have an issue, let's speak about it. Don't be scared to bring stuff to me. And the more you do that, then you're building trust, you're building a strong culture. Like, people want to be heard. No one wants to be in a situation where I can't tell David anything, because if I tell, he's going to be mad at me, or he's going to fire me, or he's going to lower my contract rate or something like that. No one wants to be in that situation. So I want to be in a place where I'm creating open communication between me and my managers, and I want my managers to have open communication between them and their people as well.
And you're building two very strong systems with that. One is an environment where people can fail. And I think that is something that people are so scared of if they're in an environment that they feel like they can't fail. And obviously, you don't want them to have some kind of failure that bankrupts the whole company. So, yeah, we don't want to do that. But like you said, these little things that they're trying to do to better the company, better themselves, if they fall flat on their face, that's where we come in to pick them back up and help them learn from their failure. But they don't have to worry about going out on that limb. And the next time they do it, because it's going to encourage them to do it again, the next time it may be the next multi-million-dollar effort that they did. So you don't want to go and destroy that drive that somebody may have. And the other thing you talked about, which I think is hugely important that we don't do enough today, is psychological safety, which is exactly what you said. They feel safe enough to speak up. They tell you what they're thinking, speak their mind. So often we have people who every time they open their mouth, they get shot down or they're told their ideas are stupid. And they could be the next one that brings up a game changer, but because they're not in a psychologically safe environment, they just shut down and they're there to be there and that's it. And they're not going to input into anything else that the rest of the group's doing. The last thing I want to talk about, back to the original thing that you had mentioned, is with communication, how important the why message is. And like you said, there are different leadership styles. You could be the dictator that just says, go do it or else, and leads with fear. But you also mentioned that as you communicate with everybody, you explain the why behind it. Why is that so important to really give everybody the why behind whatever your directions are?
Yeah, I think people like purpose. If you're just telling people to do things, I know for me, I always try to go back to myself, and I think because I want to work with people like me, that think like me, that are committed like me. But if I'm just told to just do things all the time and there's no like why, and don't get me wrong, sometimes you just have to be able to do something without knowing why.
Mm.
That's definitely part of life, what you have to deal with. But the more people you could get that are working on a common goal, again, that's where you're building culture. That's where people feel purpose, because the more purpose I can make my people feel, the more happy they're going to be. People don't want to just sit there and go to a job and pull a crank down all day long. That they
Right.
don't even know what that does. Hey, no matter what happens, every 30 minutes, you're going to pull this crank down and stand right here and do it. I'll pay you $200 an hour. It sounds great. You'll love that at first. 200 bucks
Right.
an hour. I just got to pull a crank down. You'll love it. But after time, you're like, dude, I'm so tired of this. What does this crank even do? Am I even doing anything? Do I even have purpose? As opposed to telling people, like, hey, we're going to build this amazing thing. This is why. This is how it's going to help people. This is what the journey is going to be like. And at the end of it, this is what we're going to do. And I think people would do that for less pay and be happier.
Yeah, that's exactly how you get them engaged and energized. And that's so important because I feel like people dismiss the efforts and how much you can get out of a group that is energized and happy to be there. Exactly like you said. People will work for less, they'll do more, they'll go out of their little bubble of this is my job to really help the team get to where they're going as long as they're energized and engaged in what we're trying to go do. And I think you're spot on. That why is so important to get them moving like that, or else they're just going to be there. We say people aren't numbers, they're actual people. And if you don't get them to that point, then that's really all they are. They're numbers. They're there to be there, to do the job, go home. And it's not an effective team. And that's exactly like you said. That's not how you build an effective culture. With all that, as we go down on time, anything that you want to share with the group or anything before we sign off?
The biggest thing is understanding that to share that I was a recovering drug addict. Not so much about that part, but I've slept on couches, had no car, slept in cars. Like, I've been in every position that you can be, from dead broke to no credit, bankruptcy to over 800 credit score, and having success. And just practicing simple principles over a long enough period of time, your life can change so much. I always want to work on getting that message out, because I feel like there's always at least one person listening that just feels like I can't do anything. I'm stuck and this and that. And guys, I was 100% stuck for decades. But eventually I realized I just got to put one foot in front of the other daily on a consistent basis and definitely change every part of my life, not just financially, on health as well.
And your journey's so inspiring because you went from stuck to obviously where you are today. So hopefully everybody who's watching this can really see that where we all are today isn't exactly where we need to be. We have the ability to move up, and you're a success story. Obviously, that's possible. And that should definitely give people that energy to say anything's possible compared to where I'm at today. So it's definitely an inspiring story. So we appreciate you
Awesome.
sharing
Thank
that
you.
with us. Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. So for everybody, if you want any more information on David, again, David Price, I'll put some of the information for him in the description of this episode on YouTube. You can find this episode and others on YouTube, on our YouTube page, on our Instagram at Leading Quarters, and on our audio podcasts on all of the Apple, Amazon, Spotify, any of those podcast platforms as well. And if you have any questions for myself, need me to get any information either for you from David or his contact information, if you're interested, you can contact me at leadingquarters@gmail.com and I'll get back to you. But again, David, thank you so much for all of this. I am a firm believer in resiliency and resilient teams. And between everything that you've shared on here and your own personal journey, I know I'm leaving here more inspired than I was before this started. So really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And again, I appreciate the opportunity.
Of course.